Hi, Yusra.
Hi.
How are you?
Well, thanks. How are you?
Good, good. So, firstly, I'd like to say thanks so much for taking the time from your busy schedule today to talk to us at Anas Sudan. We're really excited to have you with us, and you're going to take us through a series we charmingly entitled "It's All About Data: A Candid Chat." And I think you're wondering why we called it that, but I guess we'd like to give data a little bit of character that we think it deserves, as it's a hot topic that's been quietly shaping our modern world, our modern day world, I should say, in the background. And it's been doing that quietly without us noticing it too much. So I think we've had multiple conversations, Yusra, in the past about Anna Sudan's long-term ambitious goal, and that is aligning Sudan as a global competitor in the service offshoring market. And this is where data comes in. So we're hoping, and your role is in these sessions or series, is to help break down in layman's term the whole data and analytics piece or data analytics piece, so that we can end up engaging or start to engage with the topic more readily as either a business or an individual or a public institution. So to kick off, I would like to ask you to tell us a little bit more about you and your background.
Okay, thanks. Well, thanks so much for inviting me. I'm super excited to be here, and that you asked me to give you a little bit of my perspective or opinion on this topic. It's a bit about myself. So at the moment, I work in data analytics, well, data in particular. And I run a global team on behalf of a large global organization focused specifically on data management. And we'll talk a little bit about the difference in, the different aspects or facets of this industry, which are quite varied. But I ended up in this space. Actually, I work within corporate real estate, in particular, commercial real estate, focusing in on data specifically. And actually, I started off working within facility management within corporate real estate. So for anyone that doesn't know what that is, facility management is all the people that keep the lights on in a commercial property. And actually, I started off working for Lehman Brothers, and I was using that data in order to help make decisions on how we're going to be running our building or buildings across Europe, Middle East, and Africa in particular, and moving people around, working out where people are going to sit, etc. And it carried on from there, and progressively I moved more specifically into the analytics domain. So it was a short jump into that, working for a number of investment banks and other large-scale commercial real estate organizations and consultancies until I landed here today. So it's been a 15-year journey learning about this topic and actually using data in order to support the organization and our clients to make decisions around their real estate portfolios. So it's been a fun ride, I would say.
Gosh, it sounds like 15 years on the one hand sounds like a long time, but on the other hand, in the context of what you've managed to achieve in only 15 years, we're so excited to be able to draw as much of your expertise, draw out as much as possible in the short time we have with you. Okay, so I would like to get straight into it if I can. So the first thing I'm going to ask is, what is data analytics and what are the misconceptions about the field? So
this is it's a big question, right? I hear a lot, and we make this mistake regularly. Even I sometimes trip myself up, but we talk about it as data analytics. And actually what we should be conscious of is that there's a lot of terms that are used interchangeably. And actually, so data is one thing. Data is raw outputs. So think about it as a computer. Computer has data within it. It operates on the basis of zeros and ones. This is just raw, pure just kind of stats, whether qualitative or quantitative. So, words are also pieces of data. Numbers are pieces of data. But now, as you are starting to, and everything, by the way, has data in it, right? Now, when we're talking about data, particularly in that domain, and ultimately in what my role is at the moment, focusing on data management, we're talking about the topic, the construct or the concept of managing that data. That means anything from how do we collect it? How do we ensure that it is of good quality? How do we govern that data? How do we secure it so that we make sure, for example, if I'm collecting personal data about you, that it's not being shared. So think about when you go to your doctor, they have some specific data privacy regulations that they'll have to abide by. They've got to make sure that no one has access to that information. It's all around that structuring and that core management of data in particular. But then there is other things. So we move into analytics, business intelligence, machine learning and advanced analytics, data science in particular, artificial intelligence. Now, these are much more exciting buzzwords, but they all get wrapped into the same thing. So when we're talking about analytics in particular, we're talking about a number of things, and it really references things like management information, for example, and really just the ability to provide insights to organizations from that data. So ultimately, you're moving that data from raw data into information. So these are things that are going to inform your decision making, and especially at a senior leadership level. When you're moving into sort of the data science space, that's where you start to encounter things like machine learning and artificial intelligence. And those things are different in themselves, right? So machine learning, ultimately, you're using large volumes of data, and that's where people start to talk about big data. It doesn't necessarily have to be big data, but it generally, that does help. And what you're doing is you're creating models based on stuff that you know, or data, historical data, and it's helping you create a view of what could happen in the future, right? And you're generating algorithms that will support that, for example. When you move into artificial intelligence is really, it's the concept of finding out what we don't know, right? So machine learning is really about what we know inform the future and help us work out at large scale what we don't know. Artificial intelligence is knowing what we don't know. And that's another misconception within that. So ultimately, there's a huge variety of different roles, skill sets, different topics, different purposes to all of these buzzwords, and there's lots of them. But I think one thing that's a big misconception that I find is that everyone lumps them into one thing, and they think that it's just one topic or one domain, whereas actually it's absolutely not. It's a really complex environment.
Mm-hmm. And I think on that point, I think earlier I mentioned data analytics, and your comment was, well, actually it's data and analytics, which was interesting because I lumped them into one, quite frankly. And what you've just said now, yes, I'm one of those people who probably just lumps it all in data, to be fair. And I wasn't aware of all the different areas or different subfields within that whole data package or the overall field.
But this is where it becomes exciting and where it creates opportunities for lots of different types of people. There's capacity for data engineers, for example, who are really working, delving into kind of data warehouses and data platforms and really working with that data, you've got capacity or opportunity for business analysts, individuals that are going to bridge the gap between what you need to know. So from a business or a decision-making perspective, to translating that into the data and requirements for more technical resources. So there's space for a lot of different skill sets in this space. And I think it becomes scary when we lump it all together, but that's a really common, mistake to make.
And I've got to say, and forgive me for saying, it also moves from being dry to being exciting suddenly.
It's a lot more exciting. I mean, like, there are dry parts to it, but it really depends on perspective, right? There's a lot of very technical, aspects that I don't find, don't float my boat, but the opportunity for someone else to create an algorithm that can do something that is, beyond this world, it becomes very exciting. So if you consider that all of our trading systems right now are run on the basis of a number of very complex algorithms and models, right? So all of these investment banks, all these traders, they're working off of very complex algorithms to the point that nobody actually knows what these algorithms are doing at the moment. That's all part of this data space. I mean, it can absolutely impact your day-to-day life. So it doesn't have to just be, some of the things that I find exciting, which might bore you to tears, is things like data governance. But I find that really interesting because it helps me understand what people are doing within kind of domains that sit outside of mine. So for example, I get to understand about sustainability. I get to understand about how brokers transact on large-scale commercial deals, all because I'm kind of consuming data from them in order to provide information or analytics or reports to senior leadership. But actually, it means that I get to learn. I get to learn about a lot of different things.
Mm-hmm. So